Hello, everybody. Welcome to this pre-recorded presentation about the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Solid Waste Management Plan. We're here today to give you an overview about the planning process and an update on some of the works that have been completed and some of the ideas and proposed strategies for moving forward. My name is Colleen Dane, and I'm here as tech support today. And with me is Jody Frank, the ACRD's Solid Waste Project Coordinator, who is the subject matter expert on this topic and will be our presenter today. So with that, Jody, I will hand the mic over to you to work through the slides.
Thanks, Colleen. So hello, as Colleen mentioned, my name is Jody. I am the Solid Waste Project Coordinator and the project lead for the ACRD Solid Waste Management Plan. Just want to take a moment to acknowledge that the subject matter of this presentation represents the communities of the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District, which are located on the traditional territories of the Nuu-chah-nulth peoples. We respectfully acknowledge these traditional territories, and we are thankful for the opportunity to live, work, and learn here. With mutual respect, Isak, great respect and appreciation. Claco, claco. Thank you. So my intention of the presentation is to provide some insight on what a solid waste management plan is and walk you through the process that has been undertaken to date. The presentation will provide you with some of the background and set the stage and highlight what has been completed to date. I will take you through the draft strategies and actions, including the proposed goals and targets, and provide some information on what you can expect for next steps. So with that being said, the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District is working to update our solid waste management plan. This will be our roadmap and long-term vision that will outline how waste is reduced and materials are properly managed throughout the region. This plan includes municipalities, electoral areas, and First Nation communities. So why do we need a solid waste management plan? Well, all regional districts in British Columbia are required to have a solid waste management plan in place. This is mandated by the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy and is regulated through the Environmental Management Act. The process is set out by the province and outlines specific criteria that a regional district must undertake in order to achieve the plan's requirements. The purpose of the plan is to outline the future programs and infrastructure needed to reduce the amount of waste we are sending to our landfills and to help optimize our solid waste systems, efficiencies, and manage costs over time. So there are 4 defined steps in a solid waste management plan process. The first being step 1, which is initiating the process. So this took place in spring of 2023. And as part of this step 1, ACRD initiated the plan and informed the ministry of our intent to undertake the planning process. From there, the ACRD recruited members that represents the Solid Waste Management Plan Advisory Committee. This is a group of outstanding individuals and community members from electoral areas, municipalities, remote and rural First Nations communities, as well as business and education sectors. Part of the initiating the process also included phase 1 of public engagement. So this occurred in the later end of 2023 through October and December, where feedback was generated from the public on priority areas that the public wanted us to address through the plan process. This occurred through a region-wide survey. Step 2 is around setting the plan direction. So this included developing guiding principles. Guiding principles really act as a guiding North Star that help create the framework of the plan and guide how we will make decisions. I'll touch more on the guiding principles in the future slides. Other key outputs of step 2 were setting the goals and targets of the plan and developing the long list of potential options that would eventually turn into the plan strategies. This brings us to step 3, evaluate options. So this is where we currently are in the process. We have developed 8 proposed strategies, which we are consulting the public on these strategies. So during this phase, we want to collect public support and feedback as we continue to draft the plan. After this phase 2 engagement period ends, The feedback will be summarized and we will report back to the advisory committee to consider the feedback as we continue to develop the plan. The draft plan will be reviewed and brought back to the community for the last round of engagement prior to it going to the board for approval and ministry submission. Step 4 of the planning process is around preparing and adopting the plan. This is the last step of the planning process, and once approved, we begin implementation, which is planned for later in 2025. So as we talk about key milestones, like I mentioned, one of the key outputs was around the guiding principles. So these were developed by the Solid Waste Management Plan Advisory Committee. They are meaningful, they are relevant, and help inform the framework and guide decisions on the plan. Goals and targets were developed to be specific, meaningful, measurable, relevant, and achievable within our time frame. The engagement milestone helped inform priority areas that public found important and were relevant to their communities. This informed the 8 strategies that have been developed to address the gaps and opportunities that will guide the solid waste management process and programs in the coming years. So with that being said, I'd like to go through quickly the guiding principles. The ACRD's guiding principles uses the New Chelmsford sacred principles as our framework for addressing respect, taking care of, and recognizing everything as one for people and the land. ISUK, the utmost respect. This speaks to the personal and collective respect for the community and its people, the traditional knowledge, the natural world, the metaphysical world, and other peoples and communities. Uasak, this is taking care of. In this context, we think about taking care of the present and future generations, as well as taking care of self and the resources provided by the land and the natural world. Ishak Ishsawak, this is everything is one. This speaks to the notion of interconnectedness, interdependence, and the reciprocal relationships between the people, the land, and the wider world in a physical, spiritual, and social sense. When we talk about the goals and targets of the plan, these have been developed to support the guiding principles and to help us measure the plan's success. The 4 main goals of the Solid Waste Management Plan have been developed by the Advisory Committee and speak to 4 main points. The first being social equity and local economy. This goal is around providing inclusive, equitable, and accessible opportunities across all solid waste systems and programs in ways that provide local economic benefits through social procurement. The second goal is around environmental impacts and avoiding impacts from solid waste collection and disposal facilities that could negatively impact our local ecosystems. The third goal is around education and creating effective and accessible education to all audience types to promote waste reduction and diversion services and programs. The last goal is around economic, so making financial responsible decisions using waste reduction and diversion initiatives to offset more costly disposal systems over time. The targets that have been set around the plan aim to take care of people and the land by using our resources wisely. The ACRD encourages community members to reduce, reuse, and recycle to get the most out of their products and reduce their carbon footprint. In order to measure progress towards our goals, the ACRD and the Solid Waste Management Plan Advisory Committee has set a target of reducing our waste generation to 350 kgs per person by 2023. This also aligns with our provincial disposal rate target. When we look at our current waste generation amount per person per year, right now we're sitting at 540 kgs per person. As I mentioned, our target is to reduce that to 350 kgs per person. These values are calculated by taking the total amount disposed as garbage and dividing it by the region's population. The total tonnage disposed includes garbage from residential, IC&I, which is institution, commercial, and industry, and construction, and demolition sectors combined. So the kg per person breakdown is representative across sectors. We also have 2 landfills. So this number is relative to the region in which residents live, whether it's the West Coast or the Alberni Valley. The draft strategies and actions that have been developed and are included in the solid waste management plan that are going out for engagement aim to reduce this number and move closer to our target of 350 kgs per person. The second image speaks to where the ACRD sits within the goal. Right now, the BC average is 506 kgs per person with that BC target of 350. So this just demonstrates where the ACRD is representative amongst other communities in BC. What waste goes where? So this is another important diagram that shows what is generated in the region across the residential as well as the commercial sectors for organics recycling and construction and demolition waste that is currently being landfilled. The bottom section looks at diversion that is currently happening, but the top section shows what organics and recycling are currently being landfilled that could be diverted instead. This also shows the portion of construction and demolition waste that is currently going to landfill that could be diverted as well. The 8 strategies that make up the proposed solid waste management plan are education and behavior change programming. The second, reuse and recovery centers and eco depots. The third, business and institution zero waste programming. 4, organics management infrastructure and operations for remote and Indigenous communities. 5, multi-stream diversion programs. 6 is around construction and demolition material. 7, other material and product end-of-life management. And 8, residual management. In the next slides, I will explain the context around each strategy. However, the information on these next slides can be accessed on the Let's Connect project page. Strategy 1 is our fundamental foundational strategy. Across strategies 2 through to 8, without education, we cannot influence and change behaviors to promote awareness and the desire to participate in diversion practices. All strategies below require strong educational and behavior change programming across all sectors. The second strategy speaks to reuse and recovery centers, including eco depots. There is a need to improve the number and range of products that can be diverted from our waste stream by having better access to reuse and recycling depots. This strategy looks at establishing infrastructure in areas like the West Coast, where there are very limited options for recycling depots or reuse. By looking at the Alberni Valley, this strategy also speaks to expanding some of the infrastructure and services already available. There is currently good access, and this strategy speaks to looking at how that access can be expanded. Strategy also looks at areas like Salmon Beach and Bamfield, which are remote. This strategy looks at best option approaches for updating Bamfield and Salmon Beach transfer stations and including reuse opportunities. This also looks at First Nation communities and providing eco depots where recycling depots and transfer stations are not already in place. By working with our partners and First Nations communities and partnering with ISWATAG, which is the Indigenous Zero Waste Technical Advisory Group, we will look at providing solutions and new opportunities. Business and Institution Zero Waste Program. So when we look at what's going into the landfill, more than 60% of the waste stream is coming from our commercial, institutional, and industry sectors. This strategy looks at ways to divert these materials by looking at how we can incorporate diversion through business and organization zero waste programming. The fourth strategy speaks to organic management infrastructure and operations. This is specific to remote and First Nation communities. More than 33% of residential garbage can be composted. This looks at different infrastructure opportunities that can be incorporated into more remote communities. Strategy 5 looks at multi-stream diversion programs. This strategy speaks to establishing or improving the baseline of multi-stream programs with recycling, organics, and garbage. The aim for this strategy is to increase diversion access so that recycling and organics programs and diversion can be put in place. This strategy looks at the remaining single-family households, approximately 20%, that do not have access to a curbside program. It also looks at multifamily homes, which the majority do not have options for recycling and organics. This also looks at outdoor public spaces and events coming to our region and introducing more opportunities for diversion. Strategy 6 looks at our construction and demolition waste and ways to divert material. When we look at the waste stream, there's a big portion, around 30%, coming from C&D. There's the option to divert waste through different design promotion and access to diversion systems. Strategy 7 looks at other material and product end-of-life management. This, for example, are products like bulky items that are going to our landfill and to help improve hazardous material recovery. This seeks ways to responsibly manage hazardous materials not currently included in EPR programming. Items like bulky items and illegal dumping will also be considered under this strategy. Strategy 8 looks at proper residual management. This looks at managing our landfills. The options here look at, specifically for the AV, seeking long-term disposal options in collaboration with the Shop First Nation. It also looks at various capital projects that are required to keep our landfills operational. So those are the 8 strategies proposed that we would really love the public feedback on. We ask you to either share your feedback through the online survey, through the information posted on the Let's Connect page, or please attend one of our upcoming open houses, which you will see listed here. As I mentioned, the next steps after phase 2 engagement, the feedback will be summarized and we will report back to the advisory committee to consider that feedback as we continue to develop the plan. The draft plan will be reviewed and brought back to the community for the last round of engagement prior to the draft plan going to the board for final approval and to the ministry for submission prior to implementation. I thank you for your time for watching this presentation. Feel free to access all of our information on the Let's Connect page or contact us directly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you everyone for joining.